Hi guys, we're going to be doing our CLRT presentation. I'm Rubina and we'll be also working with Flor, Daniel, and Sam. But for the sake of time, I'm going to do 2 points and then Sam will do the other 2. So we have our product. So we will be creating a multicultural classroom calendar to answer our driving question, which is how can we promote and celebrate cultural diversity and the contributions of culturally diverse persons, not only in the classroom, but school-wide. And the principles that we used are number 3, which is learning within the context of culture, as well as number 4, which is student-centered instruction.
All right, so next we're going to look at the beneficiaries, the persons who benefit from this product. So first up is our MLL students. So they will get the opportunity to discover a variety of contributors to whatever classroom subject they have to be in, whose cultural backgrounds reflect their own. Now our non-MLL students benefit because they will get the opportunity to discover a variety of contributors whose cultural background does not reflect their own. Teachers benefit from this also because they get to learn more about the cultural background of their students on top of taking this information and using it to inform future lessons to make their lessons more culturally diverse. And lastly, the community benefits because the cultures of the communities that students belong to are represented and celebrated within the classroom. So let's take a look at this in action. All right, welcome students to the first day of the semester. This is science class. We're going to be starting off this semester with something a little different, something you might not have done in any of your other classes. But before we get into that, can someone please tell me, what do you find on the calendar? What are they used for? What do we usually see on them regarding dates?
Birthdays.
Birthdays, fantastic, exactly. Anything else?
Holidays.
Holidays, okay. What kind of holidays?
Like Christmas, you know, the ones that everybody, or I celebrate Christmas.
Totally, I celebrate Christmas. Are there any holidays on calendars that we don't normally see that people celebrate? Has anybody here ever heard of like Kwanzaa?
No.
No, that's not. Okay. Well, what else besides birthdays and holidays? Anything else?
Okay, like July 4th.
Okay, July 4th is another.
It's like something happened that day, but I don't recall what because I'm not good with social studies. But I know something happened that day.
Well, you will learn about that later on in social studies class. Well, but right, so birthdays, important dates.
Mm-hmm.
But as I just kind of pointed out with Kwanzaa, maybe some dates and some important things that we should know about aren't always represented on our calendars. So we will be creating a multicultural classroom calendar this first week of school. So, what we'll be doing is researching contributors to science. So here's the challenge though. We want to sway away from kind of that stereotypical image of a scientist. Before we go on, anyone know of any scientists? Any scientists you've heard of before? Maybe in your previous classes or?
Albert Einstein.
Okay, Albert Einstein, fantastic. What did Albert Einstein do? It's okay if you don't learn. We will learn it. I'm just curious. What other kind of?
Galileo.
Galileo, fantastic.
He did something with planets.
He did do something with planets, yes. Anyone else?
Edison.
Edison, Thomas Edison, fantastic scientist and inventor. But all 3 of those examples, what do they all share? What do they all have in common?
They're male.
They're all male, correct. Anything else?
They're white.
They're all white, exactly. So you guys have just demonstrated what I mean by stereotypical image of a scientist, like a white male. So here's some hints to get started on swaying away from that stereotypical image. So think about your own cultural background. Think about, are there any scientists, any contributors to science that might share the same cultural background as you? What about genders?
No.
If you're a male, maybe think about, female scientists. But definitely find someone who you find interesting, who contributed in a field of science that you like, that you find interesting, that you want to know more about. And of course, last but not least, you want to find someone who you didn't know contributed to science. Someone brand new, never heard of. All right, so before I let you guys go, I want to talk a little bit about using good sources. So when you're doing your research online, make sure you find a few different sources of information. Do your Google search. Check out 3-4 pages. If that information that's on page 1 is also on page 2 and 3 and 4, that's probably really good information that you want to include in your research of your scientist. If it's only in one and not the other 3 or however many sources you find, maybe don't use that one. Of course, if you have any questions about whether it's a good source or a bad source, feel free to raise your hand, or I'll be walking around checking up on you guys during this process. All right, get to it.
Okay. Who are you going to do it on?
All right, class, so it's been a week. We've been working on our research project, researching a scientist that maybe isn't always going to be represented in our textbooks or our calendars. So I researched my own scientist, and I'm going to go ahead and model to you how you're going to present your information to the rest of the class. So the scientist I researched was Marie Curie. She was born on November 7th, 1867. She's of Polish nationality, and one interesting fact about her is that she is the only person to win the Nobel Prize in 2 scientific fields. She also discovered 2 elements. So I have on my post-it note her birthday, her name and birthday, and I'm going to go ahead and put it on the day November 7th. All right, who wants to go next?
I do.
Come on up.
Okay, I did my research on Margaret Hamilton. She was the software engineer that headed the NASA project for the Apollo, who landed on the moon on 1967. And she coined the term software engineer, and by the age of 32 is when she was born in 1936, and by the age of 32 she was leading the Apollo project.
Very good.
So
what day are we going to celebrate for her?
she was born on August, so
right.
August 6th.
Let's go ahead and put that on August 6th.
Got it. There you go.
Wonderful. Who's next?
I am.
All right.
My inventor is Hedy Lamarr. She's an Austrian-born actress and inventor. During World War II, she came over to America and helped invent the prototype that would eventually lead to the invention of Bluetooth.
Oh, I use that every day.
Every day, see, still doing stuff.
And she was born on November 9th.
November 9th, another November.
That is so
person.
cool.
We should do something special in November.
We should, yeah, we got 2 days already. We might just have to. All right, who's next?
Me. So I did Jane Goodall. She is a English primatologist and scientist. So she has actually been working with chimpanzees for 60 years. And because of her groundbreaking work, she has shown us the need to protect chimpanzees, and also she's redefined species conservation to include the needs of local people and the environment. And she currently still travels today, like as an advocate for protecting chimpanzees, which I think is really cool. And also she wanted to be a scientist since she was a little girl, and she would read like books about Tarzan and Jane, and she always wanted to be just like Jane, and it turned out that's what she ended up being, was a primatologist and scientist. And she was born April 3rd.
April 3rd.
April 3rd.
All right, well, thank you all for those wonderful presentations. And so as the school year moves on and we start coming up to these days that we put our Post-it notes on, we're going to go ahead and maybe do a little activity on these people, maybe dive a little deeper into what they've done and contributed to keep our curriculum interesting. Yes?
I noticed that all of our scientists were females.
They were all females.
And I also noticed for Flor's scientists, during that time, if I'm not mistaken, women were not like included in like NASA per se things. Like it's a male dominant.
Very male dominant, right? All we ever hear about is Neil Armstrong or
Yes.
Buzz Aldrin, right? We know
Yes,
those names.
But it was because of her that we went to the
We
moon.
even got to the moon. They wouldn't even been there if it wasn't for her.
I thought
Miss
that
Hamilton, correct? That was
Yes.
Yes.
Margaret Hamilton. I thought that was cool.
Very cool, right? So we can kind of see that, maybe, again, if we sway away from that stereotypical image of a scientist, so many different people contributed. It wasn't just those typical images.
Alright guys, welcome back. So we are now in the month of March. Can you guys tell me what's celebrated in the month of March? Yes?
It's Women's History Month.
It is Women's History Month. Good job, Flor. So I remember at the beginning of the school year, we did female scientists, right? I remember we did a lot of that. Can you guys recall some of those scientists we focused on or you guys brought to my attention?
Yes, I did. I remember I did my research about Margaret Hamilton.
Yes, Margaret Hamilton. Good job. What about you guys? Do you guys remember?
I did mine on Marie Curie.
That's right, Mercury. And
Jane Goodall was one of them.
Jane Goodall. Yes, she too was a good one. So what we're gonna actually do, so that we can see in depth what they did, we are going to this week and each day go over Margaret Hamilton. We'll have some fun activities, as well as Jane Goodall, Marie Curie, and Hedy Lamarr. So that's what we're gonna do this week. You guys ready?
Yay!
Awesome.